Good morning. Today is the fifth Sunday of Lent. And today's gospel is a little strange. Why? When St. John wrote his gospel, St. John said, if I put down everything Jesus did in his life, there would not be enough books in the world to tell the stories. So St. John had to choose what to write and put down in his gospel. In St. John's gospel, we have the story of Jesus rising from the dead, and we celebrate that. So why did St. John write another story about resurrection before the end of the gospel? St. John writes the story of a man named Lazarus and his two sisters, Martha and Mary. Who were these three people? They weren't famous, they weren't rich, they were not powerful, not big dealers. They're very everyday people, like us. So St. John wanted to tell the people, yes, Jesus rose from the dead. And people could say, well, yes, but Jesus was the Son of God. Of course he rose from the dead. But St. John wanted to tell the story of Lazarus and his sisters to show the resurrection is not only for Jesus, God's Son. The resurrection is for us all. Everyone can be raised from the dead if you believe in Jesus Christ. This past weekend, we had 3 funerals. One was the funeral for a deaf woman, a wonderful lady who loved dogs. She loved animals. And she showed that with all the love she had for her family and friends, but also for those sweet animals. Secondly, we had a funeral for a deaf man who grew up a very everyday life. He worked, he had friends, he never got married. He always lived in the same town his whole life. Finally, we had the funeral for the husband of one of the people who works with us. And that husband was a fireman, a paramedic, a wonderful man, a good man, but not famous, not powerful or wealthy. But for all 3, we proclaimed, yes, Jesus is risen from the dead for you. And so today, when we celebrate this Sunday's gospel and we read the gospel, remember that the resurrection is God's promise for all of us who follow Jesus Christ. Amen.